Hi, everyone. This is Steel Rose's podcast, a podcast created for women by women. You're hearing Jenny today. I have a little bonus episode here that I'm going to be posting. So that's why you actually are only hearing my voice on this recording or on this introduction. We, on our episode this week that launched on Sunday, it was myself and Brooke, and we're talking through her coaching business and just different insights from her. We touched on this lightly, but when Brooke and I connected to record her interview, we had so much fun chatting with each other that we lost track of time. And so we had a whole hour of recorded content that it was just her and I chatting about my life, her life, and the different things that we're going through and giving each other pointers and tips and how to help each other out. And it was such a great fun, great experience. And even re-listening to it, I had all the same emotions and goosebumps and just very, very excited to share this with you as just a little episode. Not little, it's about 40 minutes, but it's just a bonus episode for you that I think is important. It's impactful, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So let's take a listen.
It's so crazy, Jenny, because and I think eventually, it's been 2 years now, and I think I will find my way back or some blending. I don't think I was 100% off in my 20-year career, right? There was something that I found, but I certainly did not follow follow your gut and what's fun and what you like every day. It was this is where I need to get to, right? Right. And honestly, having kids, I'll tell you a story and stop me if you want to divert something else, but having kids for me, I won't go down details, but we were in the middle of moving. My husband and I were transferring jobs. We had our first, and I was finishing grad school or whatever. And I literally was clearly, I always wanted to have kids. It wasn't I'm not going to, but it was a blip in what I thought was going to be my job, right? I was I don't actually think I need a nanny because I'm working from home a lot. So I'm sure, and the baby sleeps a lot. What the hell was I thinking? Excuse me. And I was
really
right?
funny.
I'm and actually I was in Bergen County I don't know where in New Jersey you live, but I was up in New Jersey
that's where we used to live.
Oh, okay. So I was in Oradell.
Yes.
My job and whatever. So I was working remote until I started working in the city. But I was it was such a blip in my, and so it, there was this process of this identity of what are you doing? And what's the mom thing that kind of cracked open, I think, and so then there was this whole thing of work versus momming and that whole, and it finally came to a head, where it was I love my identity and having a job, but I don't think this is actually what I want. And I can't put it off anymore of just keep doing the job and you'll get to the place. Because I have all these needs that are requiring so much of me. And I got to figure out the thing that's making me happy in the day to day, because it was not, it was burning me out completely,
That's interesting, because that's what happened to me last summer.
Yeah.
So last summer I got put on this project that I said I could not handle. I was I cannot do this. I don't have time. I don't have capacity.
Yeah.
I got put on it anyway. It literally I started getting emails about it. Oh, you're leading this, right? And
that's the fault, or what is it? What do they call it? You're good at something, so you just get more. It's your penalty for being a good employee.
I was I cannot do that. And they were no, you are doing it though. So I had to take this on, and it was 3 weeks, literally 3 weeks of me working from 6 a.m. to 11, 12 o'clock at night.
With kids. At home. Yeah.
All I did was come out to feed them and bathe them. And then I had to go right back into work. And I got to the end of those 3 weeks, and it never bothered me before. I always dove in.
Yeah. Yeah. And almost felt good because you're I need it. I'm going to figure. Yeah.
I would get excited about it. I'm really pumped up. And this instance, I walked away from it, and my kids looked bigger at the end of and I can't even tell you. I could tear up talking about it.
Yes.
I came out of that. I was holy shit. I'm not doing this anymore. I was this is where I'm drawing the line. So I left that agency. I joined the agency that I'm with right now. And I was this is a smaller shop. I can control this a little bit better.
Work-life friendly, hopefully. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is more work-life friendly. And then I was this is my last agency stop. I'm not bouncing anyplace else. This is my last stop in the line. Because it was very much I always had these goals of okay, great. Now I'm making this salary. Next time I'm going to go for this salary.
Yep.
And I've always been really great at that. But now I'm okay, but there's so much more.
I know.
So much
Here's
more.
what I struggle with. I'm so interested because taking this program with Kathy, right, who totally opened my eyes to a lot of things, but it was by happenstance, right? And I'm how do I talk? Like exactly what you're saying is exactly how I felt and still is like, I'm trying to break, where she was like, just go after what you totally want, like just like feel into it. Don't worry about the money, like manifest the money. It was like very, and I like am like, my eyes are open to this right now. Mm-hmm. But coming from finance, I'm like, I came from I liked working hard. It was my identity. It was like, I can do this. It was almost like waving the white flag. Like if I were to leave without something else lined up, or like without like really like in my mind, something successful that I could dig into, it was like a failure of what I've done before. Like it was all this stuff. Right. And then in my mind too, like my background, I'm like, so I think about like, how do you help other women? Like what's the path for like women that were like me that wanted to leave, kind of finally saw this mirror moment of like, and what did it for me? It was during the pandemic. And I had talked to my boss about leaving, and it was like, we went through like, we were doing the same thing with you, but it was a merger. And so it was like working like crazy. And I'm like, and my husband's in corporate. And so it was like, this isn't the life that I want. Mm-hmm. And some people I was working with were like loving it. And I'm like, it's easy when people you're around hate it and you kind of complain to each other. And so it's just like mutual, like, oh, this is just how it's going to be. Right. But it was when I hit a point where people were like, oh, I love this. And I'm like, I don't, so then it was that mirror moment. But then my boss was like, well, what would it take? Do you want my job? And I was like, no, you don't have children. You're working like crazy. And I'm like, so then I was like, what am I working for? Exactly. Like you said too. But it was like, but for me to make that transition, I still had to have like the plan. Like I couldn't just, and so like for you, right. I want, like, I get the Kathy process, which is like a lot of what holds us back is, our just stuff we've got to work through. It's like, we're too worried about the money and we're pushing it away actually. And there's like all these like limiting beliefs that I think there's like one aspect, but I do think there's an aspect of meeting women who are in corporate jobs who are unhappy and kind of on this path that's like not aligned. It's like what they thought they want to be like, there's a stepping stone to kind of really getting true to yourself, and the first step is like, maybe it's like, take what you're doing now, but do it on your own terms with your own, like consulting, right? And then like, and I love that you have that, like, how has it felt since you've been doing, like, is this something like in the moment joy that you're like, see, then that's. And
it's, well, cause I have like, I will literally go out of my way to like work on podcast stuff. Like this is like a relief for me. And every time I get to record, because even like earlier, it was a little hectic over here. Yeah. And I was like, I know that once I get on here and I'm talking with somebody, it like everything kind of eases. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice.
It's like a connection, right? Yeah. Like that is my pull tour. And I love hearing that because I hope, like, for me, I love, like, I will spend, my husband will be like, how many like touch bases did you have? And are you getting paid for these? And I'm like, no, I just like, it like fills my days, but I'm like, and so on the one hand, it's like, some of it is like coaching more stuff. So like, okay, go down that path. But some of it is like, I just want to connect with people. I'm like, and it's like these deep conversations of women that are going through similar things and like learning from each other and like, what is working and what are you reading and all that stuff. And I'm like, that's what like a podcast, it's like the connection, right?
100%. And I will say this, and part of the reason, actually the behind the scenes, like my cousin and I had talked about, we always joke, like when we were talking to each other, like, oh, haha, this would be a funny podcast topic. Like we used to do it all the time. Yeah. And then we got to like a point where I was like, like I'm going through this really tough spot with like the kids or work or whatever. I was like, there has to be other women going through this, but then like everybody kind of puts on like the happy face, doesn't talk about it. And then everyone's posting on social media, like all the beautiful pictures, like that's cool. But we're also putting each other into this pressure zone of like, we can't really be real about like all this crap. Yes. And like everyone struggles. Like I texted a friend of mine that resigned from my current agency where I'm at. She left because it was too much. She was like, I'm actually going to hire her to work on content for the podcast because I'm like, let me help you. Let me do this. Like, let's work together on this. But I love that. She left because she was like, I can't do this. And I text her every week and I'm like, by the way, my kids had pancakes for dinner twice this week because I'm like,
what if that was like a 5-minute episode each week? Like I love like meaning because there is this unlock and you know it, like, like social media, like everyone says like, it's not real. And like, that, but there's also like, like LinkedIn, for instance, right? When I left my job finally and I posted, and I was like, the first thing I posted, and this is what like got me thinking like, man, I need to share. This is what the Us Rising, that website came from, because it was like, this is resonating a lot. And my point of my post was like, I'm leaving my corporate job. It's been 20 years. And I commit to posting the process, because people always post the beginning and then the end. Like, I got this new job, but they never talk through the shit that was like, I was on a high. I was so excited I left, but now I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at other people's posts and like wondering what I'm doing. And then you see them like do something good again. And like, when I can hear those stories, it's like, it doesn't demotivate me. Is that the right, whatever the word is, it doesn't take my motivation away. I'm like, oh my God, everyone does that. And I saw this quote and it was like, if you can maintain the action that you started when your the energy was high, that's what makes the progress. And I was like, I do that all the time. Like, you're like, I'm leaving this job, I have this idea for all this stuff I want to do. And then you hit this and I'm like, I need other stories that are like, yeah,
that's the dip.
That's the dip. And what did you do?
That book, by the way?
No. I need to.
I bought it and I read it. It's like, you read it in a day. Like, it's
really okay. I'm writing it down.
Perfect. Very informative, because I had literally, so you'll love this. I had hit a dip with the podcast, and I was like, we've done like 12 episodes. Nobody's really listening. Yeah. It's like, whatever. And I was getting, I'm busy at work and the kids and everything. And I was like, should I even keep doing this? Like, let me talk to my cousin. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll scale it back to just once a month.
Yeah.
And then I got a message from a coach that I actually interviewed.
Yeah.
And she messaged me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I've been following you. I really love what you're doing. I'd like to be a guest. And that was like the uptick that I needed to be like, oh my God, someone's following. Well, the interesting part is that when I interviewed her afterwards, like we were chatting for like an hour after I interviewed her.
Yeah.
She was like, I told her, I was like, hey, listen, I was like, just to be transparent, like this is kind of what was going on. And she was like, are you being serious? And I was like, yeah. She was like, you have to keep going. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, why? And she was like, Jenny, it was really random. All of a sudden I had this urge to message you. And she was like, so whatever you're doing, you got to keep going. I was like, God.
Right? Isn't that the craziest and such a sign that like, yes, like listen to those things. I used to like hush those and like, here's what I think I need to do. And I'm trying to quiet that busy brain and like hear those things like loud and clear is like, that's the sign.
That was like my biggest thing. Like, I didn't get to do a lot of the live things in AEA just because it was just, a lot of it was during the day.
And during the day and you're working. Yes. And then I don't know. Some people can feel like, oh my God, now I'm paid that I'm missing all that. Like, it just like,
honestly, like I was getting annoyed at myself. But then, I did take away, one of the biggest things that I did take away was like quieting myself down and stop trying and just listening to like, that was a huge effort on my part, because I am not like that.
No,
I wasn't like that.
Me either. And I'm trying. And here's the thing too. Like struggle is probably the wrong word, but like I thought a lot about like the first year that I left. I was like, I know I want to change some things about me. And if I really am going to be like my true self and like successful in in a happy way, I need to make some changes. I can't be people pleasing. I have to worry less about what other people think.
Yeah.
But like the hard thing about that in my mind is I can't measure progress. I was like, I don't know it's not a smart goal, like what's my metric of like that I'm happier? What's my metric that I have more patience with my children? Like, it was like, I can't see the progress until, to your point, something like that. Like you hit a dip and what I would normally, and actually I'm feeling it this week. So I have a retreat coming up in 4 weeks. Like I said, and I'm like, I go in these waves of like, I mean, clearly the dip, but the way I differentiated is like, I had this job forever that again was more good than bad because I did it for so long, but it was misaligned at some point. Like I was going after the wrong thing. And so that was the wrong way to push myself, like the hustle culture and all that stuff, like, like hard charging, whatever, versus pushing yourself in a good way, but you hit up against your ego and your limiting beliefs. And I'm like, how do you know the difference?
I know.
Right. And so now I think it's that you hit a dip. Clearly that's not the time to change anything when you're like, you're in a dip, but like, then you can come back up and be like you can stop it. You can get in your calm state, and be like, oh, I see, like there's happiness underlying this thing that I'm doing. Like I can see that difference and I just don't like head deep into it and like stay in it for as long. And I'm like, I think that's progress.
That was the other thing that I did. Like when I started getting like, well, you know, what am I doing? Kind of like, even after the coach Nami had reached out to me, that was when I also went back to the group and was like, oh, is this still active? And then that's where I started. I was like, oh, I'm going to message everybody. Like what?
Like, yes. Like the people, because, you know, like, again, it's like so crazy. Like, obviously they're sayings for a reason because they mean something, but it's like, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I'm like, it was new meeting being in a group like that, because honestly, I never invested in myself. Like I had invested in certifications and education and like that type of stuff, but not like personal growth in that way. And like, cause I couldn't, again, see the, like measure the like, what am I getting out of it?
But you know, it's interesting. You keep saying that because I think it's because of the corporate mindset. Like I'm always like, what's the ROI? What's the metric?
100%.
Like,
yes. Yes.
Like I look at our metrics all the time. Like, myself, but like,
what's my KPI? What am I like doing this for? It was just like, but then exactly that, like being in a group with all the women, because like I get in that too, like, why am I doing this? And I can go towards some groups of women who are wonderful people that I surround myself with, but are in a different mentality and are kind of like, kind of crazy. What are you doing? And it can just totally shut me down. And then I can be around groups like this and like talking to you that are like, I'm just doing it. And it doesn't mean any, and I love it. And I'm going to keep going and go you. And let me support you. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like utopia. Like this world exists of supportive women that are just pushing you along the way.
Like that's wild to me is like, cause you encounter like in corporate life, like the traditional like interaction with women is like, oh, you're my competition. I need to drag you down.
Yeah.
I've always been really cautious about that. Cause when I was in my 20s, I thought that was like how you're supposed to do it. And it honestly didn't change until after I had kids. It's something happened there and I came out of it and afterwards I was definitely much softer than I was before I had kids. And it totally shifted like how I looked at people in general. And it changed my whole management style. Yeah. Everything that I do now with like, I have a team that I manage and I like, well, this is one of my little ones. Hi. It changed my whole management style because before I would just be like, well, you need to do this and I don't care what time you get it done, but you need to do it today. Yeah. And now I'm like, well, what can I take off your plate? Why don't we divide and conquer? I'll take stuff on for myself. Why don't you get out of here early? Like I can get this done in the morning. Don't worry about it. Now, just and supporting each other. We don't have to drag each other down. That's just not, it doesn't have to be like that.
I mean, we could do, and maybe please let's do this a whole podcast on this because it just hits at the heart of like, so I went to this women in business conference. It was like a year ago and they had a woman was speaking and she was talking about, basically how women, and it was corporate focused or traditional work for, whatever you call it, corporate. And it was like how to get to the next, like ladder. And she's talking about burnout and women take on labor, and kind of just how you come across in your brand. But at the heart of it was like key metrics, again, back to the metrics thing though, about how, I mean, you can see upper echelons at CEO, like we're down to 5 in the Fortune 500, whatever it is. So at some point, women have to take on more male dominated characteristics because that's the culture of the business, right? Yeah. You have to like, and within the confines of the culture, right? Every year you get your review and it's like, well, to get to the manager, to VP, to SVP, we need you to be a little bit more aggressive and talk more in meetings. And, and so it's inherent in it, right? And so then some of the things like you talk about, which are so positive and good and need to be in companies. And I raised my hand and I was like, well, if we're saying there's more male, like traditional male characteristics are at the top, and we're saying women need to kind of show theirs, but to get to the top, like, what do? You kind of need to fake it till you make it and then switch it.
And then you can switch it at the top.
And so in there, in my mind, that was when it like solidified for me. I was like, I want to help women. The path, I feel like, just stop me because now I'm really getting really into it. The path for women in the ultimate of like starting your business and being your best self, which I think then women can dominate like wherever they want to, because there's so much untapped potential because they're just opting out or not rising as they should, is like, let's help you remove your identity that it has to be the job and the title that you're in. Figure out what makes you whole and then leave and do your own thing instead of trying to like break the glass ceiling, like create your own, because like that is when you have like, so your voice is heard. And then to your point, how you're managing is like, you can create the culture around that. You don't have to try and like be someone else and then all of a sudden pivot when you get to a certain level, which is like impossible, right? Like cause you've, for 25 years, you've had to like enhance these characteristics. And so I'm with you and I'm like, okay, what is the way we change it? And I'm like, I don't have the answer yet for in the confines of like, you know, like
structure. It's totally different. Like it's
like
the whole,
sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I could talk about that for,
I'm like clearly. And so when you talk about like, you know, it's like when you find your passion and tie it to a higher purpose, I'm like, this is the higher purpose. I want to talk about this for like, it just gets me so riled up.
I get like, I could talk about that for you. And I actually jotted it down. We could certainly do an episode. I would have to do another episode with you because it's true. Like, and honestly, like, but there's tons of women that don't want to leave. No. And that's cool. Stick with it. Like if it speaks to you and this is something that you find joy in, like go for it.
Yes.
So you don't have to lose yourself in there. The one thing I will say about that though, that I had experienced, because you said like reviews and like, you know, when you get feedback and stuff.
Yes.
I have only been promoted one time internally. You
have to leave.
And that was, that was early on in my career. And that was when I was working 70 hours a week. And that was the only time I ever got promoted. And after that, if you look at my LinkedIn, you can actually see that every 3.5 years I left because I would get to the 2.5 year mark ish and be like, look, I'm nailing this role. Let's talk. Like, and I would bang on that door. And there was one company I was like, I work in pharma. So Novartis was my client and they're huge. And I was bringing in a little over $1 million by myself a year in revenue for closed projects. Like I was the highest earning client services person. And I put together this whole like a spreadsheet and a PowerPoint and presented all my data. Yeah. And my male manager, at the time.
I can't. I'm like, it's like, give me some tea. I'm in here for it.
This looks good. Like, this is really impressive. But you didn't reply to this email within 24 hours. So you really got to tighten that up before I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I was like, what?
Noted. Okay. So that email. Good. Okay.
Like, so noted. Update my resume.
I'm out. It's so crazy.
I can't.
Maddening. It's maddening. Like, and
it was interesting because right after that, I still know people over at Novartis and I still am friends with these people. And I was being brought into these senior team meetings over there. And I think it was making my boss and the CEO nervous. And they started cutting me out of the loop. Of like, when they were presenting and pitching and all this stuff to the senior C-suite people, I was like, I know those guys. Why would you not include me? Like, you didn't even tell me this was happening. I heard it through the grapevine. Like,
let's take a quick break.
Are you interested in podcasting but not sure where to start? My name is Jenny Benitez, and I'm here to help guide you through your podcast launch and maintenance. Check out the link in the episode description for Podcasting Unboxed, your comprehensive startup guide. I am very excited to work with you.
And how did you take that? Did you end up like did you internalize any of that, or was there anger? Like what did you like? Were you like, it's time for me to go, but I know it's nothing to do with me?
Oh yeah, no, I was like, they don't see my value and I'm going to leave because I know that I'm more valuable than what they're giving me.
See, I did the same thing. I had a bunch of anger, like, this like sound like this, like the angry woman or whatever, but like it would get to a point where I'd switch.
Yeah.
But like from a financial standpoint, I guess you could argue that that's where you get some jumps.
True.
But you have to rebuild your brand every single time you do that. And that I think slows down then the progression too, because like I see my husband it's really good because I met him through our first job, meaning same background. And he's earned everything that same background. I got my CPA. I went to Northwestern at Kellogg, like an MBA from Kellogg. He went to DePaul, which in standings is different. Same year, he's like, by the time I left, he was making like double my salary. And it was because he like stood his ground. He pushed back when he needed to. It was respected when he did that. He did it in a better way than I like. So there's like, certainly it's not just a man, but I'm like, it's such a like, I'm like, look at this. And I had to take I did take 3 maternity leaves. So you come back in. So like, there's little things in my mind that through the path, I was like, that was the right move. That was the right move. But now looking back, I'm like, how would you change this on the macro level? I'm like, it's that. And then you end up leaving instead of like changing it, you know? And like, I will
say this. Every time I left, it was up for a higher role. And I used, instead of looking at having to rebrand myself as a negative, I actually took it to apply all the things that I had learned and like level up myself.
So good.
So like, so when I and that's actually when I started bringing in this management style that I was like, this is the style I want to be integrating here. And that's actually what I did at my last couple of agencies. I was like, I'm like, I'm not going to be like these other a-holes that I've been like working with. Like, I'm going to do it this way. And it has been successful. Like,
so good.
3 agencies later, like people were like, my last agency that I left, they were like literal crying people the last day being like, I can't believe you're leaving us. Like, this is we're going to call you in 6 months. See if you want to come back. I was like, I'm all right.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. So like end the show.
I'm not coming back.
So can I ask you now in your new job, a year, and like work-life balance, supposedly supposed to be better. How is it since you've been there? Like, have you noticed a change?
Yes, but because I'm forcing myself to be different.
Yeah.
So
what does that look like? Boundaries with work, or how is that?
Yeah. Because I work from home. I've been working from home since 2017. So like pre-pandemic, I've been working from home. And my big problem is I will always log in at night. And I will always log in at 5 a.m. and like, and have that buffer of like, oh, I was in there just cleaning out my inbox and just getting ready for the day. It's like, but you really shouldn't have to do that. So, and most recently, like my team and I were talking and they told me, they're like, yeah, but when you do that, you're kind of putting pressure on everybody that this is 100%. What you're, and I was like, no, but I truly don't expect anyone to do that. And they were like, yeah, but you're still setting that out there that like you're doing this. And so then it's like, well, I've gotten 30 emails from Jenny since, and it's only 9:05. Like
9 and 10. Yeah. Obviously that's her expectation. I need to respond at 9 p.m.
Exactly. And I'm like, no, so I do try really hard to like, unless I really have to do something, I'm like, no, it has to stay within 9 to 5. So the only reason why things are different is because of me, because I could like work wise, there's always work to do. And that's the other flip of it too, that I've like been saying to myself, because my kids will be like, oh, are you done with work? I'm like, for now I am. There's always work to do for mommy, but mommy's going to stop for now because mommy needs to just stop.
Yeah. So good. Then how is that? How's your like self-care? So work boundaries are good. Mm-hmm. But you have 3 children at home. Like, are you able, this is a loaded question. I know. Are you able to carve out time for yourself? So this is a key. I've had this conversation. This is like top of mind with like 10 women I've talked to this week, which is interested to hear your perspective.
I am really trying hard to do this. So I have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
Like today I made it a point to get up and go downstairs. We have a gym in our garage. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to get up. I got to work out. Like I got to start prioritizing myself. And there was something like my husband and I talk about that all the time. He knows that my goal, like I'm turning 40 this year. Right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this is like, I'm excited. Like, I think I might be the only woman alive who's excited about turning 40.
Okay. Like, I'm 42. Yeah. When I turned 40, which was pandemic 2020, and same, I was like, this is the year, this is the decade, this is my decade. Because 20s were not, and I got married, and then the 30s were having children and like the career. I'm like, 40s, I am rediscovering myself. I'm going to figure out what I like, and I'm going to be my best self. I'm going to be the happiest, most fulfilled, like just fun. So like, I'm with you.
Like wrote up a book of your life, I'd be like, oh, look, me. Oh my God, we've been living parallel lives, right? like, so I'm so pumped up for 40 and I have no idea why, but all of a sudden this year I was like, well, what's really funny is last year when I was turning 39, I thought I was turning 38. And so it was like the midnight before my birthday and my husband, I was like, yeah, turning 38, whatever. And he was like,
so funny. That's the same with, my husband and I have the same birthday, but he's a year older than me. So I'm always like, what am I turning this year? Whatever. But it's funny. I left my corporate job at 40. It was that year too. Cause I was like, I'm not putting off what I want. I don't know what it is. I'm not completely unhappy, but I'm not okay with my life just being okay. Like every day, like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Like, no, figure it out.
Honestly, that's the thing. It's like, you know, I said this to, I forget who I was talking about this. I'm like, I have successfully hit every single milestone, like every goal that I had ever really wanted. I've successfully hit, like, you know, my husband teases me all the time because he was like, I was one of your goals. I'm like, you definitely were. And I'm like, you know, like I made everything happen that I wanted to happen. I'm like, and I'm very proud of that. And I am incredibly like grateful for all of it, but I'm like, but it feels like there could be something else.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like this is it. And that's like going into 40. Like I do a lot of the Kathy meditations. Yeah. And one of them is like, oh, you know, if you don't change anything and you just keep going down this path, like what does the next 5 years look like? And I'm like, I could literally predict it. I know exactly what I know, but I don't want that. I want this over here because this is like, I literally get excited just thinking about it. Like,
right. And that's where like, when you hit the dip, right. And you're like, and it's that fear or that like, why am I doing this? But like, when that dissipates, it's like the fog, right? Like underlying that is like excitement versus in your current, or like people in their job where it's like, there was not this like excitement. It wasn't like, I can't wait to have this meeting today. You know, it was like, it fulfilled what it did though, was it fulfilled my need to be busy, certainly, and to feel important because I had a ton of you know, and to be able to really succinctly tell someone else who was like, so what do you do? I could throw out my title and the company and feel, you know, and problem, like I do like solving problems. So it checked those, but like, I was like, so 3 of those I lost when I left there, which I had to like, what is my identity? Like all that stuff. But like, to your point, like, it wasn't like, oh my, you know, like this. So yeah, I'm like rediscovering that. I'm like, oh, I do have like I can have like fun in a day. Like it was.
Well, and then you could also like really love like, you know, and be creative with what you're like. The creative part was like really like, well, so when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, all the way up through my, I think junior-ish year of high school, like I used to do creative writing all the time.
Oh my God.
And I took all these creative writing classes and I used to submit things for publication. Like I loved it. And then I had like my parents went through a divorce and my whole mindset shifted. And I was like, I need to make money as soon as possible. Like, how am I going to achieve that? Yeah. And I totally dropped that whole like Jenny that loved to be creative. Yeah. And that's why with the podcast, I'm like, what else can I do here? Yeah. And like, I have a template for like a newsletter. And so I'm actually taking each of the episodes and I'm migrating it into like a little newsletter.
I love it.
So I'm like, that's something I'm trying to fit in somewhere.
Do you know, I know. And Wendy, but this could very well be your form of self-care right now because it fills you. It makes you happy. Like in my mind, self-care is, and we go down the steep, but it's like knowing what you need and making sure you get those needs met. So for you, it's like, okay, you know, like from a health perspective, okay, make sure you work out or like take walks or whatever. But like, this is it right now. Like, this is your like, your future potential, like you're leaning, you know, like you're like dreaming.
I've never thought of it like that before because I, you know, my mom and a lot of people get down on me. They're like, oh, Jenny, you really have to take time for yourself. I'm like, what do you do? And I get like frustrated because I'm like, I'm not the person that's going to sit in a bubble bath. Like that is not, I think it's gross, number one. And also it just grosses me out. It just feels really unsanitary. I don't know why anyone likes it. But like, to me, I'm like, this is like exciting. Like, this is really fun. Like, if I take 30 minutes every day and like do something with the podcast and do, you know,
like I don't know if you've read Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. Have you read or heard of her? Okay. Holistic psychologist, but she has this, so, you know, your triangle of needs, right? Like your basic needs, like human needs, and it's like oxygen and nutrition and whatever. Well, she redefines it in like your emotional needs. And so, and it's like women spot on. And I like, want to just shout it from the rooftops, but basically like to be your best self means you are in flow, you are creative, like you said, you're just like, you're having fun, like fun. That's at the top of the pyramid. You can't get up there, which is like your ultimate form of self-care, until you have like the baseline is nutrition and oxygen and whatever. And then the next one is community and safety. And like, you know, which is like for women too, it's like, you need to be safe in your like, from a work perspective, and you have like, you know, like community with other like-minded women, like AEA, you know, and so you feel like you can be seen and heard or whatever. And then you reach that. So like self-care, certainly you need to be able to move, but also it's like, it's just like a workout. I like to equate it to, right? So like some people need to build muscle and some people need to lose weight. And it's like, some people need more fat than less fat or whatever. Same with self-care. It's like you need, for your most energized self, is like the ability to like express your creativity freely and without a client telling you how, or your like this, that's it, right?
Honestly, yes, because, and that's where like, and I discovered that through AEA, because we did like a bunch of work and everything where it was like, well, think back to like little you, like what did little you really want to do? Little Jenny wanted to be like a social worker, and she didn't care about money. She just wanted to help people, and she wanted to help like bring things to people and help like inspire people and like lift people up. Like that's what little Jenny used to aspire to do.
Little Jenny was such a sweet little Jenny. Oh God, so like such a big heart.
And then little Jenny became Big Jenny, and Big Jenny was like, I need to make money. Like we gotta like bring the bacon home and everything. And
I knocked little Jenny down and said, I'm taking over.
Totally suffocated little Jenny. And now I'm like, oh no, don't be scared. You can come back. Like,
I know. And you can have both, right? Like you can, so like a podcast, like you could help so many people through this or the newsletter, wherever this ends up going, but also love it and make money from it. And like the possibilities are, and I love that. I love that too, because I'm like, it's crazy. It's crazy when, like, for me, I was a little different in that, like, I laughed off creativity forever. I was like, okay, I'm finance and I'm math and like account, you know, black and white. And I'm like, I don't have like draw, what do you, but what I realized was that like, that was me shutting, and like, I'd hear people be like, everyone has creativity in them. I'm like, that's coming from someone who has it. I don't have it. But I realized it's because it was me caring too much what others thought. And like creativity comes in any form, right? And a little bit is like the ability, like, again, if you can get those basic needs and not care what others think and have the right community and the support and people supporting you, and it's like, creativity is like trying out different things and seeing, like, it doesn't mean drawing necessarily. Again, there's so many forms, right? But it's like, where can you take a thought that no one has, whether it's like a new podcast idea or a painting or a story or a way to start a business, an entrepreneur, and like bring it to life. Like there's so many, and that in my mind was like, but you can't get those amazing ideas until you like have all of these other needs, right? But like, that's the ultimate form, is to get up to there and be creative in whatever way is for you. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to draw, but I think I can be creative in a different way.
Yeah, it's funny because you're right. Like people hear like, oh, you'd be creative. It's like, well, I don't paint, I don't sculpt. Like, that's not, you know, I don't do any of that stuff. And like, to be fair, I'm also like, I don't have the time for that. Like,
yes. Like, you know what? I say this too, like in like the trailer to the podcast that I haven't launched yet. But it was, like people would ask me my hobby and I laughed it off, and it was almost like a badge of honor. And I'm like, hobby, I have 3 children and a job and my husband's traveling. Like what? And I'm like, dummy, that's not funny that you don't have a hobby. Like that's not funny that you don't know what you like. Like that is a sign that you are not getting you're not spending the time on yourself like you do others. Like,
you know, that was always a stopping point for me too. When people be like, you know, when you start a new job, they're like, oh, what do you do? This is Genevieve.
Hi, Genevieve.
You're Catalea? Oh my God, this is Catalea. Yep, that's what happened.
He's like, this is not.
This is what happened. Yeah,
I love it.
It's wild. It really is. Like, and you're right, because I would always get those answers like, well, what do you do outside of work? And I'm like, I take care of my kids. Like,
yeah, like what? Like you must not be as busy as me, or as important. Like you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm really busy, and I'm like,
well, and that I think, well, you kind of just said it, like you touched on it. Like, well, you're not as important as me.
Yes,
like
that is.
Like that was like a big thing for me. I was like, oh, I'm so important.
Yes,
I have my job. I'm needed. They need me to be there. No one does what I do. I have to lead this. And now I'm like, I don't have to lead this. I'll tell you what to do. You can figure it out. Like, you're smart people. Like, let me delegate this out.
It is crazy because, like, at the heart of it, again, now if you like, you know, the AEA stuff and you uncover all that, I was like, I was actually so insecure. Like it was my insecurity that then, right? Because people would hit on it and they'd be like, you don't have time. And I'd be like, I don't have time because I'm so busy. You don't understand. Right. But then that was like me, like being like having to prove myself continuously instead of just, I am like, you know, it's like, it's so crazy. And I'll tell you another thing about like two, well, I don't know how much time we have. One story, and then I'll have to tell you another one if you want, but about like moms and self-care is like, it's so crazy because you have like with 3 kids too, right? Like I run myself, like it's the mental load too, right? That I don't give myself any credit for. So my husband will be like, you know, like he'll come home from work and be like, why are you so stressed? It's, you know, he's very supportive and loving. And I'd say, but like sometimes, you know, like what's happening? And I'm like, it's back to school. There's 4 forms that we need the doctor's office before and then they need to have like their dentist appointments before they start. And then like the forms for like to be in after school activities, like so many forms. I don't know. And that's just one thing of like,
I was doing that for like 20 minutes before I hopped on with you.
My God, it's crazy.
It's different classrooms. And they all have to be logged into this app, and I have to figure out how to toggle between. I have to register for each classroom separately, and then each of the classrooms have their own little offshoot things.
Yes.
And I was trying to figure it all out. Like, it's a lot. It is incredibly stressful. Like
it is so much. And tell me if this resonates with you. Besides the task actions of it, which you could write down, but like you like just even remembering to do the tasks is a mental load. I am the therapist isn't the right word, but like there's 5 people and a dynamic between all of them. So how many connections is that? I don't know, between 5 people. Like there's like 25 different, you know, brother and sister fight, but then the brothers and brothers or whatever. And I am the in tap with like everyone's mood. I'm like, oh, he needs to wake up earlier because if he doesn't get that breakfast and the other one wakes up first and has that bowl of cereal, he's going to get pissed and it's going to throw off them at school. It's like that too. That is like,
that's all mental load. Yeah.
So much. Right. And so they all have after school activities. And I actually, and like you're running like crazy doing that. We actually had a Monday that like one of them just like were so eye opening to me this week. So one is I had a Monday open up with the kids, like an afternoon activity, like each of them are, I'm like, we had one too many children for like 2 parents. I don't like, we had whatever. Love my daughter dearly, clearly, but like one too many children. So like a Monday opened up and my first thought was like, oh, now I can sign one of them up for, you know, the piano lessons that they've been wanting. Or like, there was not even like, there was this list of 10 things that I could fill up that time with. There was not even a snippet of like, what would I want to do with a Monday afternoon, like evening from like 6 to 9. Like there wasn't even anywhere. Like, and if you asked me, I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I'll just like, so that was like kind of a mirror moment for me. One, like, and then the second thing I'll say too. So I just think this resonates with like just every mom right now too. So I was talking to my sister-in-law earlier and she's traveling. So we're again talking about all the after school activities that we want our kids to be in. And I like, it grows them in so many wonderful ways and all that stuff. But she was going out of town for work. So she's traveling 2 weeks in a row. And I'm like, oh, my brother, like, is he gonna be able to cover all that stuff? You know, like you guys have it figured out or help. She's like, yeah, or they just won't go. It's fine. And I was like, love that. You're right. Totally fine. They'll miss a soccer practice or a dance. Like it's totally fine. Yeah. I was like, but would you ever do that for yourself? Like, would you, and not in an accusatory way, but if you think about it, it's like, I would like you're doing all this crazy stuff. And of course you're not going to make your kid like prioritize yourself all the time over that. But like after 3 weeks of like 0 time for whatever it is that you feel like you need, like do that when you're home sometime. And it was like same for her. She was like, no, I would never even think about it. Like if I'm home, I'm going to do it. It's just when I'm away, it's not a problem for them to miss. I'm like, well, it's not a problem for them to miss one day. Like
I started doing that. I resonate deeply with that.
It's like, it's all these mirror things. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm telling myself this too. Like what?
I do it to myself. I talked about on one of the episodes, the glass ball, rubber ball method. Yeah. Because I am like, are you familiar?
No, tell me.
So, because I consistently am like, I do all the things. I'm going to do it all. I'm amazing. I can cover everything. And then I snap consistently. It happens all the time. And so what I started trying to do for myself, I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better at this method. You basically like every single task is either glass and it cannot be dropped today or it's rubber and it can bounce to tomorrow.
Oh.
So you basically are like, okay, well, for example, right now there's dishes in my sink. I'm like, that can bounce to tomorrow morning. I'm cool with that. I'm going to put the kids to bed and like relax with my husband. Like I'm cool with that bouncing, and then there's other times where I'm like, no, everything has to be clean. Like this is gross. Like let me get everything done. Laundry, same thing. That bounces all the time. I never do it.
Until the kids are like, Amazon can have new underwear here tomorrow. That is what's happening.
No worries, everybody. You need new socks? I got you covered. So it's like stuff like that. But even like, it's applicable across everything. It's applicable to work, like your kids. Everything is like, okay, this has to happen today. Like today I have to read to you. I want to read to you tonight. It's important to me. And I want to have that bonding time with you. Or I want to do puzzles with the kids. Like doing that, but then it's like, well, there's some days where I'm like, I can't do that. I have to do something else. And they understand, they're getting the hang of it too, because I'll tell them like, oh, today mommy has to do this. So tomorrow we can definitely do something else. And that gives you almost that like pass to be like, I couldn't get it done today, but I got all these really hot priorities done today. So that's good. And I don't feel like I've totally failed.
100%.
I used to feel like a failure all the time. And I'm like, I'm totally not a failure.
No, because you said it earlier too, right? Like work doesn't ever end. And it comes down to like, I think pausing, it's not every day because like, right, work-life balance, it's like, some days it's all work, some days it's all life, whatever. But it's like every, I don't know, quarter or something is like, what really is important? I mean, clearly family is important to you, but like, what is it? It's like, I want to be there for them in their, like to help them with home. Like, I don't know, but just like what's important. And then to your point, like, okay, so this week, based on those values or whatever it is, like, what needs to happen, and sometimes like you're not always going to make them, but it's like the clarity of what's important and like coming back to that and like knowing that in the moment too, because there's going to be 1,000 asks.
Like I know, like I just recently started like prioritizing my own health. Do you know, after the twins were born, I did not go to the doctor for 3 years.
It is insane.
When I was pregnant, I took the best care of myself. But then after I had my kids,
no, which is arguably when women need the most care. Like it's all postpartum. Your pregnancy is not actually done until like 2 years. Like your body it's crazy to me. So like there is 17 podcasts I want to do about that. It is insane.
It's insanity.
There is like a post baby, like and like pre-menopause, like there is like this gap for women who are like, am I still like, I just had a baby, but I had it later at like 38. Am I pre-menopause? Am I post? Like, am I still like a baby thing? Like, what is happening with and I'm still like, I'm not trying to be old. Like, I want to be healthy, but like, there is like a gap of like, and women just, you're like, you are completely drained because you're handling like from toddler to even like teeny, you're like hands on. Like that is, I'm like, oh, there needs to be like, what is the hell? Is it cold plunges? Is it like fasting that I need to do more? Like, what is it in my stage of life that I need to do?
So that was our episode, or not episode, but that was our little behind the scenes episode, if you will. Brooke and I were just kind of shooting the breeze. I hope you found it helpful. I hope some of it resonated with you. If you have any questions on anything, or if you really need to reach out to anybody, you can reach out to myself or my cousin Melissa via our website, www.staleRosesWomen.com. Brooke's website is thisisusrising.com, or Brooke K Coaching. You could also find her on Instagram. She's very active there as well. Reach out to her. She's wonderful. Should be an amazing coach for really anybody to engage with. So I hope you enjoyed this, and keep an eye out for our next episode. Thank you.